The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Please say good morning. In Denver, I don't know what time it is in the UK. I'm never good at this. Dr. Sam Vatkin is our guest. And the book is Malignant Self-Love, and he takes the long, hard view at the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Hey, Doctor, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, my time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what time is it in London right now?
I'm not in London, actually, right now. Right now I'm in Macedonia, and it's 1 o'clock right now.
You're in Macedonia. You're in Greece.
Very close to Greece.
Yeah.
Macedonia is a country that is adjacent to Greece, a neighbor of Greece.
Yeah, it's been part, or at different times it's been part of Greece, but yes. What are you doing there?
I'm trying to establish a center for the study of narcissism and narcissistic disorders.
A little of your background.
Trying to see what can be done in the Balkans environment.
Now, we've talked so much about this man, this president. First of all, I probably should have led with this. A bio, please, if you would, of yourself.
The relevant part is that I've written several books and electronic books about narcissism, pathological narcissism, personality disorders, and other mental health issues. And in July 2008, that's a few months before the current president of the United States became what he is, I have published an article in globalpolitician.com, which is a news portal. Mm-hmm. I published an article whose title was very suggestive. Barack Obama, narcissist or merely narcissistic? That was in 2008. And I followed with a series of other articles and with several video interviews well into 2010 about the same topic.
And your conclusion?
Well, in order to diagnose someone with the full-fledged disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, one needs to administer tests and structured interviews. And one needs to sit face-to-face with the alleged or ostensible patient. So one cannot say with any certainty that Barack Obama suffers from the pernicious and malignant variant of narcissism. However, having in evidence thousands of hours of video and so on and so forth, one can safely say that Barack Obama has pronounced narcissistic traits, narcissistic behaviors, and most probably what we call narcissistic defenses, which are modes of reaction to stress and to life's events.
An example, or examples?
Well, when I studied Barack Obama in 2007, 2008, I was forced to watch 1,000 hours of video of the then junior senator and so on. So I got well acquainted with his, for instance, body language and with his speech patterns. Consider, for instance, his pronoun density. Pronoun density means how many times in a single sentence one says I, me, my, and myself. Now, the typical person uses, the index for a typical person is something between 4 and 5. And the index for Barack Obama at the time was 17. And in 2010, it shot up to 50. In other words, Barack Obama uses the first-person pronouns, I, me, myself, and mine, something like 10 times more than the average person. In itself, it's an insufficient indicator to say that one is a narcissist, but it definitely is a narcissistic type of behavior. Then you have his body language. It's a very haughty, superior body language. It's a body language of exclusion rather than inclusion. It's a body language that puts walls and boundaries and firewalls between himself and the hoi polloi, the lowly, the great unwashed. So you have this vision thing, is watching, his gaze is directed at the sky and at eternity and posterity rather than at his interlocutors. So we have a series of something like 8 to 9 indicators which put together usually designate someone as a narcissist, or at least what Theodore Millen, the granddaddy of personality disorders, called narcissistic style. So Barack Obama most definitely has a narcissistic personality style, Whether he has a disorder or not remains to his psychiatrist to determine.
I'm going to ask you a very loaded question. Is this the behavior of someone who has something to hide?
Something to? I'm very sorry?
Something to hide.
To hide. Sorry. Well, first of all, the vast majority of narcissists come from dysfunctional families. A dysfunctional family doesn't necessarily mean a broken family, divorce, or it means that the parents dysfunction, do not function properly. We are all acquainted with instances of classical abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, psychological and verbal abuse, but this is the tip of an iceberg. Pampering the child, doting on the child, spoiling the child are also forms of abuse. Considering the child to be an extension of the parent, or forcing upon the child, imposing on the child the parent's own expectations and dreams, making the child the vehicle and conduit of the parent's frustrated emotions and so on.
If I may,
colluding with the child against the other parent. All these are forms of abuse.
But if I may interrupt, I'm become sort of a historian, if you would, of Barack Obama's life, although there is no accurate historian of Barack Obama's life because his life story has never truly been told. There's been, I'm sure, or perhaps you are aware of the fact that there are many, many hidden documents of his life. He doesn't tell the same story, never tells the same story straight. Other people tell different versions of his life. I could probably come up with 10 or 12 life stories for Barack Obama. We don't know the truth of his life because his credentials of his life, his bona fides of his life, have been under lock and key, protected by powerful law attorneys and law enforcement agencies and major universities and passport offices, records keepers. I don't know. I know you live abroad, but I don't know, Doctor, how aware you are of Barack Obama's lack of a true life story.
I'm pretty aware. I've followed the work of Orly Tights and others.
Okay, you're in the game. All right. Having said that, when you say a dysfunctional childhood, or he was passed from person to person.
Exactly. Yes.
How does that play out in this?
Well, his early life has been decidedly chaotic and replete with traumatic and mentally bruising dislocations.
And no matter which version of the story one reads,
exactly, no matter which version.
Indeed,
the only common thread, the only common denominator to all these part confabulations and part biography, the only common thread are these dislocations.
Indeed.
He did relocate from one country to another.
What about let me, if I could, because I'm getting to talk to I've waited to talk to someone like you for a while. His father, if that's his father, the man that's now been dubbed the other Barack, he meets him once in his life and doesn't like him. He never marries his mother and literally leaves immediately. We know that she, his mother, Stanley Ann, these are things that we know, takes him when he's less than 10 or 12 days of age and goes to Washington State. Comes back to Hawaii only to meet Lola Sotero. Runs off with Lola Sotero to Indonesia. Now, he's been bounced around now, by this point, my best guess is 4 times, maybe 3, maybe 5. Then they go off to Jakarta. He's in Jakarta for, we're not even clear how long he's in Indonesia, but long enough to go to elementary schools in a Muslim country, and adopted, we're told, by Lola Sotero. Then his sister is born, his half-sister is born, Malia. At that point, his mother, on his own, sends him back to Hawaii to be raised by Toot and Gramps. That's a lot of connections and disconnections by the time he's 11, 12, maybe younger. What does that do to a boy? What does that do to a little girl? What would that do to a little kid?
I am not aware of a single similar case in literature, in scholarly literature, which did not end in severe mental dysfunction. The amount of dislocations, the number of dislocations, and the severity of these dislocations is really outstanding. Start with the fact that it's been a mixed-race family in a time where tolerance has been much lower. Then proceed with he was a human football. He was kicked to the curb. He was, his grandmother, his mother. People died around him in car accidents, cancer.
Absolutely.
He changed 3 at least separate cultures. I mean, there's the contiguous continental United States, then there's Hawaii, then there's Indonesia, which is a world apart.
How about name
changes?
And
then there is the African background as well, of course.
And then name changes.
Name changes which are indicative of identity changes.
He's not the same name. He has at least 3 or 4 different names by the time he's a teenager.
I do not think you would find a serious mental health practitioner or professional who would dispute the fact that such background is bound to yield some mental health dysfunction or another.
How do you're wonderful to speak to. I was hoping you were going to be this guy. I was told you are by a couple other people that know you.
Thank you.
No, please, thank you. We're talking, it's called, the term is narcissism, being narcissistic or narcissism. Now, say that right, Peter. But narcissism. Is he a narcissist, or is he, I believe that he is hiding so many dark secrets and he has willing, I should say, participants and helpers in his ability to tell these stories.
It is not atypical of narcissists. The vast majority of narcissists confabulate when it comes to their life. They have multiple biographies, multiple identities, and they switch with great ease between one narrative and another. So this is very typical of narcissists.
An example of that, Doctor, if you would.
Well, you would meet a narcissist, and one day he's a war hero, and the next day he was stateside during the war, and the next day he was actually a secret agent, and the next day, and they switch between these narratives, storylines, identities, and confabulations with alarming ease. And that is because at the core of the narcissist, there is nothing. The narcissist is one huge void. There is no person there. Then what is narcissism? Just to regress a bit. Pathological narcissism is when a child who had been exposed to abuse and trauma develops a false self. It's a psychological construct. It is everything the child cannot and could not have been. So where the child is helpless, the false self is omnipotent, all-powerful. Where the child is confused, the false self is all-knowing or omniscient, and the false self is brilliant and perfect and so on. So from a very early age, the narcissistic child, or the child who chooses to react with narcissism to his dysfunctional environment and ruined life, such a child from a very early age is by definition fed on falsity. He is a fake. He is a forgery. He has only a false self, not a true one. So in a way, he is an actor. The thespian skills of narcissists are outstanding. But where actors, hopefully, stop acting off the set, the narcissist acts on and off the set, incessantly, 24/7, 365.
As this weekend, I actually spoke with some friends, and we have and I'd love to include you in this group. There's an ever-growing group of people that I believe have spent, they've spent 5, 6, 7, 8 years, some of them more, in trying to fathom out exactly who Barack Obama is, just with a straight life story. I'll tell you a story that happened here. We had 4 different people on the radio show, people that I respect for their investigations into who is Barack Obama, and I asked them one at a time, tell me Barack Obama's life story. and I'm sure you're not shocked by this, Doctor, but they told 4 totally different stories.
No, not shocked at all. It's very typical of narcissists, Barack Obama or not.
Yeah,
All
no,
narcissists are like that.
It was like they told 4 separate stories, beginning with born in Kenya, born in Hawaii, born in Washington State, born at home, born in this hospital, born in that hospital, and just, from conception. And even prior to conception, with his mother's relationship with a fellow by the name of Frank Marshall Davis, and the arrival of these nude photographs, and nobody could give it a straight. And these are brilliant people. I mean, it wasn't one of them calling the other one a liar, saying that person was wrong or this person was right. It was that's what they're. And I thought to myself, we know more about George Washington or Millard Fillmore than we know about the current president of the United States. That's amazing.
Amazing, but typical. Narcissists generate, on purpose, this obfuscation. They thrive in uncertain environments. They derive their sense of omnipotence, of being godlike, exactly by destabilizing their environment, by creating and engendering unpredictability. This gives them the power, because they are the eye of the hurricane, the eye of the storm. Yeah. They are the only ones with certainty. Everyone around them is uncertain.
Thank you.
And thereby frightened, and
Oh, listen, I know people in the United States that tell me they're frightened to do some of their work because they're afraid of repercussions.
Yeah, Barack Obama hasn't been averse to to using Nixonian and worse tactics. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Let me ask you one more, and can you stay with us through a commercial break here and come back?
Of course I can.
A friend of mine, a guy by the name of Jerry Corsi, who's going to be in town this week. Jerry's done great work on this, and of course was beaten emotionally and sued and everything else over his work, and he held the course. And a few years back, he came up with a third name, and the third name for Barack Obama shows up a name Soebarkah. It was spelled Soebarkah, and it was the last name on an official document filled out by his mother when they were in Indonesia. Mm-hmm. A fourth name, Soebarkah, not Saturo and not Obama, but Soebarkah. And that name apparently has been used. And that, again, asking someone like yourself who is seeing this, from 5 miles up, not 1 mile and not on the ground, but another name. That doesn't shock you.
It doesn't shock me because I've been dealing with narcissists. I've spent the last 17 years dealing with narcissists, talking to them, analyzing them, corresponding with them, studying them, etc., etc. They are a very unique subspecies of humanity. And one of the things that characterizes them is the elusiveness and impossibility of their ostensible and alleged biography.
It's the term the will-o'-the-wisp.
Yeah, in a way. It's ephemeral. It's now you see me, now you don't. It's a sleight of hand.
Hang on, we'll bring you right back. You're fabulous. You're as advertised, as the man said. Malignant Self-Love is the book. I've been told about this guy, and he's a home run. Narcissism Revisited. In the quest for who is Barack Obama, I was told about this man. He speaks with us he's in Macedonia this morning. He's a PhD. Are you a physician, doctor, or a PhD? I should have asked. I'm sorry.
Actually, my PhDs are in philosophy and physics, but I've been studying psychology for 17 years now, and I've written extensively and am quoted extensively in thousands of books on the subject. So I feel.
No, you're wonderful. His name is Dr. Sam, and his last name is spelled V. We're getting a lot of email about you. Vaknin, and the book is entitled Malignant Self-Love. And he is on our radio show. We're talking about the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Let me ask you a really lousy question. I apologize if it's out of line. Mental illness comes in all different shapes and forms. Is this mental illness?
Yes, pathological narcissism is mental illness in the sense that it affects the life and the ability to function of the patient and of his environment. Narcissists are self-destructive, for instance, and thereby they are also other destructive. They are dangerous. They end up being stalkers, paranoids, sadists, and so on. So while technically, in the strictest sense, a personality disorder is not akin to schizophrenia or some other biochemical conditions, it is still an all-pervasive, extremely dangerous condition. With your permission, I will take 2 minutes of your time to refer to the issue of confabulations and false biography and multiple biographies.
Sure.
The narcissist invents his biography as he goes along, but he does it in an involuntary fashion. He does it because it's fun, or he does it because he enjoys being someone else for a while, and so on. The psychopath, on the other hand, invents a false biography or multiple biographies in order to gain benefits: power, money, access, sex. So this is the distinction. If we were to say that Barack Obama has obscured his true biography in order to become the President of the United States, then we are talking about a psychopath, not a narcissist. If, on the other hand, we were to say that he has multiple biographies because he's a, creative, artistic type, and he goes along inventing and reinventing himself every other day, then we are talking about a narcissist. And this distinction is very important. And there are 9 indicators that are beginning to tell us that Barack Obama is actually a psychopathic narcissist, or even a psychopath, which is a world apart from a narcissist. Psychopaths are far, far more dangerous because they are like cruise missiles. They are benefits-oriented. They are goal-oriented, and they do whatever they do in order to derive self-related benefits. So there are 9 signs that he is more a psychopath than a narcissist. I don't know if I have the time to go through them. It's up to you.
Let me give you 2 examples of what I'm talking about, and then speak to them. When Barack Obama's although this time now his ratings are dropping like a rock. When Barack Obama's numbers were dropping steadily, and the stories of his birth certificate or his lack of a birth certificate, and then out of nowhere, about 3 years ago, from the White House press briefing, Obama, who was facing these very failing or falling poll numbers about his identity, releases this long-form birth certificate to the American public. Only one person ever saw it. It was a PDF file, and it's been literally taken apart by so many different experts, up to including certain words that were used, and for instance, saying his father, when it said race, African, they put African. Well, African's not a race, and there's 30 or 40 real discrepancies, including that it's layered. And the mainstream press in our country bought this thing lock, stock, and barrel. Then, most recently, billionaire Donald Trump revealed that he offered Barack Obama $50 million donation to the president's favorite charity in exchange for releasing his personal records. Barack Obama never responded. And we have these 2 moments, which both of them, although not significant, but to me were very important in chasing down who Barack Obama really is. And no one has any idea. I mean, that the birth certificate that was offered, we've had it up on our website so many times, the discrepancies are overwhelming. And then that $50 million rejection for the birth records. What do those things say about someone who was covered? I mean, if somebody wanted to see my birth certificate for, I don't know, for $25, I'd show it to them, let alone $50 million. And he couldn't do it.
Yeah, but Barack Obama has a messianic cosmic vision of himself.
That's my next
and
question.
of his life.
Yeah.
He is on a mission, a globally important, historically significant mission.
But why wouldn't, I mean, at this point I thought, well,
because
maybe...
he is above and beyond such demands. He is the Son of God. He's the new embodiment. He's the second coming.
He believes that. You believe he believes that?
Oh, yeah. Of that I have no doubt, because I've analyzed hundreds of utterances and unguarded comments and so on, which demonstrated, and this is also very typical of narcissists, to regard themselves as a kind of messiahs in the making.
There is no doubt.
And their appearance on earth as a mission.
There's no doubt in my mind that his life story, I had to talk about this on Saturday, his life story is a myth. It's not the truth. It's a myth. I would bet everything I have in the world, if I could bet it in Vegas, that the life story that he tells or people tell about him is a total myth. It's no more, it's not even remotely true.
And this is with precedent. All tyrants, all dictators in human history have carefully constructed their myth of creation. Adolf Hitler, for instance, has completely rewritten his true history and invented a biography which had very little to do with reality, but which resonated well with the emotional needs of the populace of his nation during a time of enormous crisis. So this is also very typical. Nothing Barack Obama is doing, unfortunately or fortunately, is unique or unprecedented. He simply is following the well-trodden path of previous narcissists who ascended to power. The only difference being that he ascended to power in the world's only superpower at this stage, which renders him inordinately dangerous to his own country and nation and to the world at large. And I've been warning, I've been sounding the toxins, the warning bells, ever since 2008. That's before he became president.
When he spoke here, when he receives the nomination, and not the Denver Post, not Channel 9, no one, no New York Times, no Boston Globe, no ABC, NBC. But he made a speech, and I'm paraphrasing the speech, but he talked about this unlikely relationship between the Kenyan goat herd and the Kansas schoolgirl. And we were all led to believe they were married. And even the governor of Hawaii said that they were together he'd seen them, which all total lies. And that at 2.5 years of age, he told little school kids, and this was 1.5 years ago, the president told little school kids they went to the airport to say goodbye to his daddy who was going to Harvard. That's a lie. She's gone. He's at least 10 days of age, or give or take. All the paperwork is there. Jerry Corsi, all these guys have gone to Seattle. They talked to the babysitters. They've seen the University of Washington transcripts, the rent receipts, where she lived. She was gone. They were never married. They never lived together. And even the hospital that he was born in, you can't get a straight answer. So, but he makes up this story, and it's lapped up like mother's milk. Why? Here's my question again, doctor. Why didn't somebody, some mainstream person, not some idiot that does a radio show like me, but I mean some quote reputable person, question that story? Or is it like the Fuhrer? They just wanted to go along with it.
The thing is, when the leader's invented biography emotionally resonates with the emotional needs of the nation at a given moment of crisis, and following the Bush presidency, at least half the nation considered itself to have been in a state of deep despair and crisis. So when his invented biography resonates, I call it emotional resonance tables. So when it resonates, it creates something which we in psychology call mass psychosis. It's a shared psychosis. It's a mass delusion, mass hysteria, which sweeps across the nation. And so have a look at his biography, Invented or Not. It includes a black man with a white woman. It includes, these are very, there was a psychiatrist. Sorry?
That's it, absolutely. I totally believe that's the multicultural romance of his father and mother.
Yes. He used something, he used very cleverly, which The fact that his biography includes so many elements such as these pretty much convinces me that it is largely invented.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was invented.
Pretty much convinces me. Not these legalistic analysis of PDF files and who said what and whether the words were appropriate or the hospital was open at the date or not, and all these. These don't convince me. But what does convince me is that the likelihood that in a single person's biography, you would find so many resonances with so many archetypes. Archetypes is a concept in psychology.
Sure.
There was a guy called Carl Gustav Jung,
Indeed,
who was a disciple of Sigmund Freud.
He was Freud's guy, yeah.
Yeah, and in the 30s and 40s, he invented a theory of archetypes. He said that in each culture and civilization, in each society, we have archetypal symbols that resonate deep inside our unconsciousness, even when we are not completely unaware that they are there. And these archetypes underlie religion, underlie civilization, underlie culture, and so on. And in Barack Obama's biography, there is not a single archetype missing. All these elements which resonate so deeply with us are there. The orphan, the lonely child, the black and white marriage, the harmony of races, the world peace, crossing cultures, Islam in the West. You name it, it's in a single biography. What's the likelihood of that?
I'm knocked out by what you're saying because it's absolutely true. He fulfills everything that Carl Jung spoke about, isn't it?
Yes, he is. It's as though he had been invented by a committee of psychiatrists,
Yeah, he could
of
do
psychologists.
that. Yeah, hang on, you're wonderful. Can I keep you again? Can I keep you through this?
Yeah, of course you can. I'm here for you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for doing the radio show. What I'm asking, I guess, next is how does it end? I mean, and is it? Here's a strange question, and I thought about this. Maybe we shouldn't be blaming the president. Maybe we should be blaming ourselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so
it's a dance macabre. It takes two to tango.
It's a dance of death, and I'll ask that one as well as when will it end, and what will happen if the truth is found to be the lie. If you would, this guy, put him in a rotation. You'll hear from him again. It's 5:42. It's 18 before the hour. 710 KNUS. This is a special guest. I was told about him, and I thought he was in Great Britain. In fact, he's in Macedonia this morning. The book is Malignant Self-Love, about narcissism, but Dr. Vakin speaks about Barack Obama. And I have two questions, and if you've missed this hour, you really should be, podcast this one. He's special, and we'll have him back as soon as possible. One is, what happens, and it's almost Old Testament or Greek tragedies or Shakespearean plays. The truth will out someday. First of all, Doctor, will it not?
Well, it depends on the vigilance and diligence of your own people, your own nation.
Well, I don't put much trust.
But yes, usually you're right. Yes, usually narcissists are uncovered and the truth is revealed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The truth will out. I mean, Shakespeare, Old Testament, Greek tragedy. The truth will out. The next one is what happens when the truth is found. As the American group, the Jefferson Airplane, Grace Slick said, when the truth is found to be lies.
Right.
Then
well,
what,
bad things. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, then what happens?
Well, bad things happen. Narcissists invariably end their lives by destroying themselves and everyone around them. When we're talking about a family, it's bad enough. When we're talking about a company or corporate structure such as Enron, that's bad enough. But when we're talking about the United States of America, that borders on a global calamity. And regrettably, there is no other end game but self and other destruction for the narcissist. So if I'm right in my prognosis that he is a narcissist, in my diagnosis, sorry, then the prognosis is very bad. And I think the end game is nigh. I think it's upon you. You may not fully realize it yet because it's unfolding in slow motion. But I think you are in the last inning. So it goes through four phases. The first, and you have to be a bit patient here because it's a bit complex. So the first phase of the end game is when the narcissist begins to believe his own confabulations and convinces himself delusionally that he is exactly what he had been selling to others. So he convinces himself that he has a messianic mission and that he is important and that he is indispensable and so on and so forth. That's phase one. Phase two, the narcissist derives what is called narcissistic supply from his positions and his actions. Narcissistic supply means adulation, admiration, attention. And the narcissist feeds on it. Without narcissistic supply, the narcissist crumbles. It's like the vampire movies. He feeds off narcissistic supply. And then phase three is when the narcissistic supply aforementioned, the feeding mechanism, breaks down. For instance, when the president's popularity plummets, when he is exposed to multiple stresses and stressors, when his ability to work with his human environment, for instance with Congress, is impaired. In other words, when he is subjected to a series of messages from reality telling him, you are not as grand as you think you are. You are not the Messiah. You are a mere human being, and you have to collaborate with other people in order to obtain your goals and to compromise and so on. So this means that he doesn't have as much narcissistic supply as he was used to in the honeymoon period. Now, when this happens, we move on to the fourth phase. The fourth phase is known as acting out. Narcissists tend to blame everyone else for their own misbehavior, defeats, failures, and mishaps. We call this alloplastic defenses. They defend against the pain of having failed by blaming everyone for the failure except themselves. So alloplastic defenses lead to acting out, because if you are not the guilty party, if everyone is out there to get you, if everyone obstructs your inevitable path to grandiose glory, if your messianic mission is frustrated, if you are crucified, Jesus-like, by the Romans and the Jews, because he is in his mind, he is kind of the second coming, And if these Lilliputians are dragging you down and nailing you to the ground and so on, then you lash out at them. And this process of lashing out is the apocalyptic, disastrous and destructive phase of narcissism, which we call acting out. It is then that the narcissist pulls the house down, ruins everyone and everything around him in a series of unmitigated, unbridled aggression and even violence. And this happened with all narcissistic leaders in history. I keep mentioning Adolf Hitler. Well, Obama is not Adolf Hitler yet.
It's the twilight of the gods, isn't it? It's the
exactly. That's the Goethe-Dämmerung, the Wagnerian end of all things.
And in the end,
it is glorious in the eyes of the narcissist. This destruction is worth an opera. It's music to his ears.
What did he say? You don't deserve me.
You don't deserve me, exactly. I'm going to punish you by ruining myself and you along with me.
You don't deserve me,
You don't deserve me. You are pusillanimous. You are too stupid to understand. You are too retarded, withdrawn. So how can he rectify matters? By wiping the slate clean. And how can you wipe the slate clean? By destroying everything and everyone around you, yourself included. That's a glorious ending.
Yeah, we're down to a few moments left.
Sure.
What does, and then we'll have you back as soon as we can. Doctor, what does happen? And I personally believe that the truth will out, and we will know, and we will see. Maybe, not until he leaves office, but he's also in something that I wish I was smart enough to have called it the sprint to the finish. All of this craziness that we're watching now on our southern borders, every place else in the world, is this all part of that?
The narcissist in this case, Obama, but narcissist in general, will make use of every point, every center of instability to increase the fear and the disorientation of everyone around them, trying desperately to reestablish their position as supreme beings and to rekindle the fires of narcissistic supply, adulation, admiration, and so on. In the process, they will destroy institutions. There is institutional destruction in the wake of such a person. Have a look at Nixon. Nixon is a perfect example.
I agree.
And Obama has far exceeded Nixon already.
I agree. They're much alike.
It's amazing that Nixon was impeached for much less.
I agree.
Do
you see the I do. Do you see the similarities between the two of them?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Nixon, although Nixon is believe it or not, far less of a narcissist than
I agree.
was far less of a narcissist than Obama.
I agree. I think Nixon had enormous things to prove because of his childhood and everything like that.
Exactly. It's what Adler called inferiority complex.
Yeah, it's
so
way
he was
different.
A compensatory narcissist, which is a benign type.
Way different, I agree. But I see them very much secretive enemies going after. The difference is in our country, the press went after Nixon. In this country, the press just lays down for Barack Obama.
And this is the source of the danger, this mass psychosis, this enslavement of the checks and balances.
Yes. Oh, my God.
This is the risk, the institutional risk that faces the United States and by implication the world.
I want you to be back on our show in...
Anytime, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to figure. We have so many things that we're planning. My producer our producer, I should say, as this said, he already knows a plan where he wants to fit you in. You gave me...
Allow me just to interject and add that I am actually, in my day job, I'm a geopolitical and economic analyst, mainly Middle East and Europe. So I'm editor-in-chief of Global Politician.
You're the best guest we've just walked into blindly in a long time. So congratulations, you're brilliant.
I've been blushing continuously throughout this interview. No. Don't do this to me.
Doctor, you're on hold. You'll speak with Casey, and we'll talk to you very, very quickly or very soon again. Thank you so much.
Truly, thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.